This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Tech, show number 158, recorded on March 13th, 2014. Here at Home Tech, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios. Here in a very nice spring has arrived in Bellevue, Nebraska, and we are glad for that. It has been a long winter here. And Mike, I know it has been a long winter for you in Minneapolis there for sure. And spring is on its way here. I'm sure you still got some snow on the ground. Ours is all gone.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's
gone?
It's gone.
Are you serious?
It's gone.
Like,
yeah.
Gone.
Yeah, it's gone. No snow.
I should open my window. We've got 2 feet on the ground still.
Yeah, I think
it's melting.
You guys are going to be socked in for a while. I got some friends
Oh.
in Madison, Wisconsin, too, that it's just going to be the thaw. It's going to be a while there. But we do post the show with world-class show notes each week out at theaverageguy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can contact the show. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv, or track me down on Twitter. By the way, I'm just 7 away from 1,000 guys on Twitter. 7. If you haven't followed me on Twitter, @jcollison, let's get me to 1,000. That'd be kind of fun. I don't normally pimp my Twitter account from that standpoint, but I looked today and I'm 7 away from 1,000. You can also call in those questions if you want me to cover something on the show. Just call it in 402-478-8450. Leave a message and we'll play it on the show. We did a couple of those last week, and it's a great way for you to get in. If you can't make the live show and you want to ask a question, leaving it that way is a great way to do it. Now, Home Tech is a part of the Geeks Network. Find the links to this show and many other great podcasts, and Dave's got some good ones coming along that we're pretty excited about out at thegeeksnetwork.com. Join us in chat, watch and listen to the show, and find all the navigation in the upper right-hand corner out at theaverageguy.tv. All right, let's dive right in. I've got Mike Benkovich. Did I pronounce that right? Benkovich? Yeah. Did I get that right? I never get that's always hard for me to do, but we have Mike with us tonight. Mike is a former Microsoft employee and was a Microsoft a tech evangelist for them there in the Minneapolis area. I got a chance to interview him, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago when we were doing, I think that was in the fall when we were doing Heartland Developer Conference. Mike, thanks for joining us on the program.
Hey, it's good to be here, and it seems like it was an entire season ago.
It does. It does. It was a long.
At least
winter.
75 inches of snow ago.
It was a long winter for everybody. I think if it wasn't snowing, it was bitterly cold. But let's talk about. In fact, if you want to, I'll put a link to our former interview with you from that day in the show notes, so folks want to go back and watch it. But what's been keeping you busy lately? Give us a little background on you, just your elevator pitch on who you are, and then a little bit what's been keeping you busy lately.
So I'm a former Microsoft evangelist. Before that, I was a consultant. Before that, I was just a developer trying to find my way through the technology scene that's out there. I grew up in Illinois, so kind of a little bit further south from where I am now. I moved up to Minneapolis for school. I've been here quite a while now, more than 25 years. And when I first moved here, they said that one of the things I've discovered about Minnesotans, they love to talk about the weather. And I thought, how weird is that? Until I got here and I realized, wow, this weather's bizarre.
Well, there's always something to talk about, right? It's whether it's hot, cold, or a lot of snow.
Well, and we complain or we brag, but it's like, well, at least we don't have the earthquakes, we don't have the hurricanes. Right. We don't have the fires as much. It's it's actually not a bad place to be. So.
Yeah. So did Microsoft take you to Minneapolis, or did you go there on for consulting?
I came here for school. I went to college at the University of Minnesota. Okay. I'm an aerospace engineer, so kind of got that engineering out of the way. And then at that point in time, there was not a lot of work it was just after the Cold War ended, so there weren't a lot of bombs to be designed and built.
Yeah.
So I kind of fell into that other thing, which is the computer thing. And
so early 90s?
Yeah.
Early 90s when you got there?
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. So what, from a technology standpoint, what's keeping you busy right now? What are some of the projects that you're working on?
So the things I've been doing lately have been either cloud focused, where it's taking the cloud and applying it, whether it's Azure or something else, understanding what it is and how it fits into the tool belt. Also, building client apps, whether it's in I've done a lot of Windows Phone, and I've done the Windows 8 apps, 8.1 apps. I've got 2 or 3 that are in the store for customers that are doing okay. And then outside of that, I've been doing a little bit of just kind of architectural SQL Server tuning kind of advice. So diving into databases and how to get more out of your investment in the tech dollar. So
that's a pretty wide range of things. I mean, just what you mentioned right there. I have a hard enough time. I'm a tech guy. I like it. I have a hard enough time keeping up with, a couple as a home server MVP, which I won't be very much longer because Microsoft's taking away the home server concept, although we're finding different ways to do it. We're going to talk about your home server here towards the end of the show. But how do you stay up with everything? I mean, what kind of tools are you using? What do you find valuable in keeping up with all that tech? Because you deal with a lot of enterprise tech, and I know the Windows Phone development and the Windows 8 development that you do is maybe more customer focused. But how do you stay up to date with all that stuff?
So what I've done for a long time is webcasting. If you go out to benkotips.com and you look at that site, there's webcasts out there. And there's probably 150 or 250 titles that are hour-long broadcasts I've done for Microsoft on different things, everything from Visual Studio launches to SQL Server to SharePoint to Windows 7, Vista, Identity, all of that stuff. And by virtue of doing and putting together a webcast, you have to understand it well enough to explain and answer questions. So in order to keep up on things, right now I'm doing some courseware for App Dev Learn Now. They're a training center, a training company, courseware company, and they have lots of courses out there. And I'm putting together a course right now in Visual Studio 2013. What's new from a high-level overview of 4-hour course. And it's literally taking it apart and saying, okay, well, what is cool about Visual Studio? So for the last 2 weeks, I've been doing nothing but going through and putting together what I think are the top hits on that and then recording it. I know that going out and writing courseware probably isn't the way that most people learn things, but it's one way to say, okay, this whole thing with like Twitter Bootstrap. Oh, you hear about it, but until you use it, yeah, okay, well, I might use it, might not. But when I have to do a demo on it and I show it and it's like, oh, okay, this just got real easy, and you realize just how far things have come. It just gets you excited about learning more about the other stuff that's out there.
So by the act of having to go through and be able to teach on it makes you kind of dig in and figure some things out. Now, what's Twitter Bootstrap? I don't know what that is.
So what Bootstrap is, or Twitter came up with this. CSS is a style sheet kind of a thing for when you're building websites. So instead of putting all the markup in the individual tags, you're now putting into style sheets that can cascade. You can add different things together, and they all kind of come together. What the Bootstrap is it's a framework, a collection of CSS plus JavaScript that does a really nice job of recognizing where I'm rendering stuff out to. And they call it responsive. And what that means is that it responds to different sizes, different things. Like right now I'm talking to, on my laptop. It's got a PC screen. It's the standard computer size screen that everyone's been using forever. But there's, 7 billion people out there. There's, maybe 1.5 billion or 2 billion PCs, but there's 1 billion smartphones, which are a lot smaller than the PC. And 70% of those people don't have regular computers. They only use their phone. So all the sites we designed that were made for the big screen look lousy on the phone. What Bootstrap does is it takes that and responds, and it reformats things and reacts to different things, what they call media queries. So you can say, okay, well, how big is the viewport I'm looking at? And it comes back, and then in the CSS, it'll actually drive into different things. Now, building out that CSS and doing it from scratch, it takes it takes a lot of knowing what's possible with it. But at the point where we get to where it has all that stuff put together, just a second, it literally is giving us a framework. So the Bootstrap is pre-built, and it's got all the stuff that we need to make that work. So I can take just a general site, I can apply the Bootstrap themes to it, and it will pull it in and give me exactly what I want.
So it speeds to market your responsive design.
Right. It's a way of it's a framework that's out there. There's other frameworks as well.
Okay.
But for the Visual Studio 2013 and the new default templates that come out of the Create a New Project are wired up with Bootstrap already.
Mm.
So if you go out and you pull up one of those sample sites, they just automatically are going to flow to the right size. So like if I'm going to go out and build a media application or a mobile application, I don't have to be as worried about, okay, well, I have to go out and build a Windows Phone version and an Android version and an iPhone version. Not knowing hardly anything, I can build just a standard template, web forms or MVC, and it'll work.
And so what you're saying is in Visual Studio, I can write it once in Visual Studio and then deploy it to Windows Phone, to Android phone, and to an iPhone?
No, it's not creating a Windows Phone app. It's creating a website on iOS.
Got it.
And the web page will render correctly on each of the browsers on those devices. So it's still HTML.
So for websites, that
Right.
works out really well. Okay.
Well, and for web applications, the thing is you've got a lot of stuff you can do with making the mobile applications more responsive. So jQuery Mobile's got a lot of real rich controls. A couple things you can't do with it is, for instance, getting out to the devices on the phone. So like the camera. I was going to build an application for a customer that they wanted to have QR codes, go out and scan the QR code, and then automatically do some swapping of things in a list. It's like, okay, cool. We'll just print up the QR codes, throw it out there, build a mobile web app, and have that flow all the way through. But what we found was you ended up needing to have the cursor in the right spot, and it just didn't work. So it works for some scenarios, doesn't work for others.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's some interesting functionality built into Visual Studio.
Mm-hmm.
And can the average guy, so to speak, I mean, I know there's a light version of Visual Studio.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there that you can? Is that fairly? Yep. I mean, if you're interested in development, is that the way to start, or what's the right way to kind of get into that ecosystem and start using it?
So, like my mom builds websites. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Very cool.
She builds websites. She's been a web developer for my dad. My dad's in advertising, and he's got customers and clients and things like that. But so my mom has been building websites for quite some time, and it's interesting because she's actually picked up the CSS stuff before I did, because she was like, well, I have to understand this because each of the websites is going to depend on the different parts of it. I've installed the Visual Studio Express for her. She likes the Expression Blend or the Expression Web Tools better, which used to be Front Page. But she's getting familiar with and working better with Visual Studio. But going all the way to Visual Studio, there's so many dials and everything else that the Express is going to tone it down 2 steps and give you a cleaner, simpler interface just for the web or just for the Windows Store or just for the phone. And for all the design pieces, for most of it, it'll just work. And it works great.
So that would be a fairly easy tool. Easy in quotes, right? I mean, if you're if you're interested in getting, you and I in the last interview, you had showed me there's actually a site, Windows Phone site, that you can start building your app. We've talked about that in the community some, where it kind of gets you started. Now, is that a situation? So if I go to, and I think I still have that off. Yeah, some Windows Phone. So if you go to appstudio.windowsphone.com. Right, that's the starts walking you through the setup, and then can I export that code and drop it into like a Visual Studio Express and continue to work on it?
Yeah, when you generate the app, you end up with the nice looking GUI, and it comes up on the Windows Phone. There's also, if you look at the App Studio today, there's a preview of generating the app not just for the phone but also for Windows 8.1. So you're going to get 2 solutions or 2 projects in that solution. Or actually several projects, but it's going to be well-structured code. You can download the code, or you could just click on a link to install the app and run it on your phone. If you just install it and run it, great. You can make the tuning and the tweaking inside of that. But then you can. So last night I was at St. Cloud.net user group, which is north of Minneapolis, and I was doing a talk on exactly this. I was going through and we used the App Studio to start out with, hey, here's our scenario, and then we opened up the code and we added to it Windows Azure Mobile Services to manage the data behind that app so that we could share it across an Android app or across an iPhone app or a PhoneGap or Xamarin or any of those other mechanisms for pushing data out there.
You just said a key word in there, an Azure Window Mobile Services. Tell me
Yeah.
what, because as an MSDN subscriber, which I am, not everybody is that listens, but we get some Azure services for free. Well,
Mm-hmm.
they give us a $100 credit every month, and that actually runs a lot of things. If
Oh,
you haven't checked out Azure, even without that MSDN, you can run 10 websites free on Azure. Now it's
mm-hmm.
using some shared hosting, and there's some limitations on it, but you can run WordPress. That's one of the cool things about it. It's a 2-click setup to get WordPress installed, which I
Mm-hmm.
found very, very helpful. In fact, if you go out to my personal blog, so if you go to theaverageguy.me, that's my personal blog. That's being run on Azure right now. That's an Azure.
Mm-hmm.
That's a WordPress instance on a Windows Azure site, and at this point, I'm still running on their free version. I have some money. I could upgrade it if I wanted to, but run it on the free stuff, and it runs great on that. But what are these mobile services? I've seen them out there, and I have no idea what they are. How does that work?
So the if you're building the websites, someone's out there asking, is the Windows Phone a great platform to develop for? Yeah, it is. I'm used to XAML, so it's a markup language that works for the way that I've been talking and teaching for a while. And it's real easy to go out and build these applications and get them running and to deploy them. What the mobile service is inside of Windows Azure, and you get 10 of those free too, by the way. Okay. With an active subscription, you don't have to be spending anything on that subscription as long as that subscription is active. You don't have to go.
It's a pay-as-you-go, but you don't have to pay anything.
Right. If you're not using it, you can get a 20 meg free database, SQL Azure database for 20 meg for free for development purposes. You get 10 Windows Azure mobile services plus 10 of the websites. So, like, if you're doing a nonprofit, you're helping someone, a church or a Boy Scout troop, and they want to have a website that's going to sell their cookies or whatever it is they're doing, you can go out and you can create that. You can set it up there. You can show how it works. You can do all the development. It doesn't cost you anything. You can use the free versions of Visual Studio by going out to msdn.microsoft.com/express. You can download, install it. It'll all just come up and run. The mobile services allow you to create a place that manages your data. So applications are great, but a lot of them use data to do things. Like games will have a scoreboard, or you'll have contacts, or you'll have a reason for an application beyond what you would do for like a brochureware site where it's Benko tips, just a bunch of whatever. If people want to go in and interact with it, now you've got data that you have to manage. So mobile services ties in a RESTful API service that wraps your data from that database and exposes it out to whatever kind of a client you want. And when you create a mobile service, it takes about 30 seconds to create one. Then you can go out and there's links to create a Windows to-do list application on HTML, Windows 8 or Windows 8.1, Windows Phone, Android, iOS, PhoneGap, Xamarin, and I think there's another one. But you basically can create this app and create native applications that are talking across that HTTP, that RESTful interface where you can do get, put, post, and delete to manage the CRUD. So data is great, but it also has scripting on the server. So on the client, I can shape what the data looks like, but I can have things on the server saying, add an update date on here. I want to be able to pull in maybe some other piece of information that is going to be applied across all the clients. I don't necessarily want to have it all. Every client is going to be built for what it's tuned to do. So I can write scripting on the server using a technology called Node.js, which is JavaScript for the server. And so I can basically go out and I can create these node jobs for the insert, update, delete to say, okay, well, go out and do these things before you execute the code. Maybe tie into Oracle, go out to my MySQL, go into blob storage and pull this back, or upload a file, or whatever it is. But you got a ton of flexibility in what you do with that. Now, the other thing that it does is it also ties in an OAuth endpoint for common identity providers, including Twitter, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and I think Windows Azure AD is up there now too. So inside of the API or the SDK that I get to update my application, I can, with one line of code, pop up a login, an OAuth login, which is going to do the Twitter login to authenticate who you are, and then use that identity throughout the scripting, so I can use that user's identity in the script to say, show me just this user's data. So when I insert data or whatever, I can include that identity information so that when you go in, you'll see a different list than what I would see. Now, it also ties in from that into the push notification services. Apple notification, Windows notification, and the Android ones, so that you can actually send out the live tiles and the updates and the toast notifications to let people know when things happen. So I can have a scheduled job running in mobile services once a day to go out and count up how many Twitter references you've got, and if you break a certain numbers, to send out a blast email to everyone who followed you that day saying thank you for whatever. And by the way, click here for your free podcast or something.
Yeah, we don't charge for them, but
make it relevant, right?
Yeah, no, right on. And that's all contained in those mobile services there in Azure?
Wow. So the mobile services can do all that. So whether you decide that you want them to do that or not, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But it supports data, identity, notification, scripting, and it's hugely scalable, and it's available, for free. So if you've got any kind of an application that ties into this, it's like, okay, this is almost too easy.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, a lot of that stuff's for free, but is 20 megs enough? I mean, that seems pretty small,
Mm-hmm.
But in your experience, will that get you somewhere?
For the demoware that I do, it's more than enough for the demo apps that I write. But when you start building real stuff, okay, now you're going to actually, either use a SQL Azure, use some of those credits that you get with your MSDN subscription.
Right.
You can use your credits for the SQL database up to whatever. I think it's $5 for the first 500 meg, $10 for the first gig, and then, I'd have to go out to the Azure and look at the pricing.
I'll look up the mobile. Yeah, so it's database size. Yeah, $10 for the first gig. And then you got to buy.
It graduates down.
Yeah. You got to buy some. I assume you'd have to purchase some bandwidth on that, and that maybe 50 gig of bandwidth is $5.
You don't pay for the 50 gig. You pay for what you use, so it ends up being pennies.
Right.
It's a penny for 100 terabytes or whatever. I mean, it's the bandwidth isn't going to get you. It's going to be data storage possibly, but even that's going to be fairly cheap, and that's if you're using the SQL Azure database. You could also use blob storage, which is 10 cents a gig.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's very cheap.
And it's also much more scalable, but it does require a little bit more work, because now in the node jobs that you're writing, instead of going out and just returning back the set of data from SQL Azure, now you're going to query the table storage and pull back records that'll be designed for that style of storage, like the NoSQL.
Yeah, interesting. And even on the API calls, in the basic service, you get about 1.5 million API calls included in it, and then on the standard service you get 15 million.
Yeah.
So some pretty good numbers there. I mean, that really allow you to do it. I told you in the pre-show, I'm pretty even though I don't completely understand everything there, and I could probably do it if I worked hard enough at it. At this point, I don't. I know some of the guys in the chat room do or could. Or the guys and gals that listen to this show could, but I'm super impressed with all the things that are out there on Azure, and then too, just how easy it is to get to them all. I mean, I don't using your Microsoft account, log in, go to windowsazure.com and log in using your Microsoft credentials, and like you said, all those a bunch of stuff. If you start a pay-as-you-go account, like you said, those 10 free websites, those 10 free mobile services, you get some storage for free.
Yep.
It's all available for free. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to get you started there.
Now, you know what else is cool? Is suppose you're doing this, but you're kind of pair programming with someone else, on this, just on the side or just for fun. TFS Online, which is the Team Foundation service, the code management piece, is also available for free for up to 5 people. And you can deploy directly from TFS. So when I do a check-in to the code management, it'll deploy out to the appropriate services.
Yeah, so it really allows, I mean, if you have a small development team, and 5 is great because most colleges, and I'm sure this is why they have 5, capstone projects are for people,
Right.
and so it's it's that perfect kind of team setting where they can use that and get used to it
Yeah.
and use it for free. We're actually running, or I'm actually running, a Windows Server 2012 R2 Essentials because of the home
Mm-hmm.
server stuff that we do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running on that on my MSDN account. I was just checking, and I've got that thing running in its lowest setting, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I've even bought some storage with it. So I think
Okay.
I have 150 gig, let's say, as storage that's out there. I think that's what I've got.
Right.
And I have 2 days left in the month. It does a nice job of telling you kind of what you have left.
Mm-hmm.
I spent $13
Yeah.
like on that for a month, for the month,
Mm-hmm.
and not terrible when you think about if you were going to set up your own. Well, maybe I'll suggest that you set up you change your home server to
Mm-hmm.
Azure, because
Right.
you're going to talk about your home server breaking here in just a minute. But
Mm-hmm.
not, if you think about pay as you go, I think some guys could probably set that kind of service up. Now, they still don't have bare metal backup, like we would
Mm-hmm.
expect on the home server, like what you have, right? We
Right.
we expect that backup, but there's a lot of things you can do with the server out there, and it's not terribly expensive. So other Jim asked, do those 5 need MSDN licenses for the Team Foundation server?
Mm-hmm. So no, you can use the Express product. So you get the free version of the Visual Studio. You can create the online TFS account, so you don't have to have an MSDN subscription to create it. And you can, if you have MSDN, it's not limited to 5. You can go, as many users as you want. But the online TFS is pretty impressive. If you haven't looked at it, go to visualstudio.com. You can create your account right from there. Create jimcollison.visualstudio.com, and it will set up your project. And it includes not just the code management, but also all the work management. So I can put in tasks, I can put in areas. It'll do the sprints. You can do burn down. You can see how many bugs are out there. You can see who's doing what on the code. But it's a great way for. I've been doing consulting for the last year since I left Microsoft, and a lot of smaller customers. It's a great way to collaborate and be able to work remotely, because we can go through that and have that be our center pivot to go from.
Do you suggest that for some of your smaller clients? I mean, when you're going in, do you use that as a competitive advantage to say, hey, we can do this collaboration and we can use a lot of these free tools that are already available for Microsoft?
Oh, I tell them they're tools that only I know about. They need me to help them kind of, I'm a consultant. Well, it depends on whether, but yeah, they could actually, it's a great thing for being able to come in and say, you know what, let's modernize what you're doing. When I leave, it's going to continue running, and that's the important thing.
So on benkotips.com, is there some Windows Azure videos as well if folks wanted to go back and take a look at some of the stuff we talked about? Have you kept that, any recent ones, or you kept that up to date?
I need to update it with some of the new releases that came out since in the last 6 months or so.
Okay.
If you look at the list of services, I don't know when you created your subscription, but the list has gotten a lot longer. They've added media services, they've added Hadoop, they've added the service bus to be able to manage it right from there. You've got, just looking at the list, it's
the management services, traffic managers,
recovery services.
Yeah.
So like if I've got a VHD, I can actually back up the VHD to there and be able to recover machines at home instead of doing it through whatever. Active Directory. So maybe I want to run a small company, a startup, but I don't want to go out and buy a AD instance. I can run that off the cloud, actually create my benkotips.com domain and manage all of my users off of that.
Yeah, that by itself is pretty powerful. And it's when you think about what Active Directory and all the things that it does. You mentioned Visual Studio. Visual Studio Online is now available through their menu system as well, so you can get right to it from there.
And have you looked at what that is?
No, I have not.
So it's more than just hooking up to TFS. It's actually a compiler. You can go out and you can edit code in it, and it's a Visual Studio. It's got an editor that has IntelliSense. It has the autocomplete. It's got some great capabilities, but you're able to use the browser as an editor for doing some basic stuff. It's not meant to be the large architect code map debugging kind of tool, but it will get you quite a ways.
It's the beginning of that, though. I mean, I think that's where they're trying to move. Is everything is in the cloud, including all your development. So The days of big, super powerful PCs. That's about the only thing left we really need PCs for at this point, is that development stuff, right? That we do.
And games.
True, true. Although,
People,
yeah, with the way gaming boxes have gone, with the PS4 and with the Xbox One, those are
yeah,
some pretty good rigs. I mean, they've got
yeah.
problems, but some pretty good rigs. Well, let me wrap up this Azure discussion because
Hmm.
I wanted to get. We talked a little bit about that in the last
Hmm.
interview, and you actually. It wasn't long. You and I talked about that. You got me
Hmm.
actually writing an app, and I got that done and deployed, and got
Hmm.
that out. And I wish I had time to work on that. What I really want is
Hmm.
an average guy podcasting app that I could blast out there that people they would just get the stream through that, so
Hmm.
they wouldn't have to use another podcatcher or whatever to get it done.
Right.
And I got most of that done, and then it's sitting, it's
Hmm.
75% done at this point.
Right.
When I went out to the MVP summit this last fall, one of the guys I was sitting with goes, "Hey, did you know you can run Windows Server 2012 R2 Essentials on Azure?" And I got really excited. So I've spent the last couple months working on that, and
Hmm.
including moving some of my websites to it. We did a project with our high school interns here at Gallup, and I
Hmm.
actually it was a WordPress exercise where I set up a WordPress instance for them, and then they went through and did their first kind of website using WordPress
Right.
because it's super easy to deploy, right? You can
Hmm.
blow out a WordPress site pretty quickly, and we used I created a second Azure account, so I have another account, another email address that has
Hmm.
associated with a Microsoft Live ID, and I logged in and I did that pay as you go, and I created 6 or 7 new Azure sites,
Hmm.
not a dollar, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
WordPress sites. So, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty cool. Anything else about Azure that maybe I missed that's cool that you want to drop in there?
Well, the websites is pretty nice because it's just easy to go out and create. It's quick. The gallery has got lots of great stuff you can plug in and go with. Um, yeah, it's hard to say enough about it because I've been, as a former evangelist of Azure, I've had the opportunity to go and look at all the Amazon stuff, look at all the other cloud providers out there, and kind of see what's different and what's available. And it comes down to having compute, but also having the services. One of the things that Azure does, and this was I blogged on this, was I had a problem with one of my services. I created a VM, and I was running some stuff where I was actually transferring, was it 650 million records between a couple different databases, and then re-indexing it, and then building out something. The database file I think was like 246 gig, and then the log file was sizable too. But we were doing this in Azure on the virtual machines, and we had some issues with some of the VHDs not detaching the right way. So I was like, okay, well, shoot, I got to call someone. So who do I know? I'm like going through my Rolodex of my old buddies on the team. Okay, should I call Scott? Should I call this guy? Should I call that guy? And it's like, if you just call Scott, you're going to get someone at Microsoft's going to answer because they're all named Scott. But I was like, I went out and I clicked on the support and it said, oh, well, yeah, I could create a ticket. And I'm like, I can create a ticket? And I created the ticket and I said, okay, well, here's my problem. I kind of described it out, uh, filed it in, and within an hour, I actually got a call back from Microsoft saying, I've got this ticket number 12XYZ, and here's what you need to do to resolve it, blah 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 blah. And then there was a follow-up email that came up saying, was it resolved, according to whatever. I also found I could go online, I could just see the status of the ticket. And when you've got a help system where it's not like calling up and being on the phone to some phone jungle for an hour, hoping to talk to the right person, they cut you off, and now you get back in line to try to call back in. It is so nice to be able to get help and support.
That's
And
good to hear.
Azure, they've just done a phenomenal job of bringing their help ticket system, and making that public.
Yeah,
And
taking it right to the user. I mean, you kind of have immediate access to it.
mm-hmm. and
That's
and they
very cool.
follow up, and it's a high touch, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, they all
Yeah,
work
yeah, it's
too.
kind of yeah, it's kind of refreshing to hear that. I know that Microsoft's really making an effort to make a run with Azure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know what their numbers are, but I think they're having
Mm-hmm.
some good success with it. You talked about the gallery, and this is one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that impressed me as I was reading through just some of the offerings. So you say, oh, okay, so it's all going to be Microsoft stuff, right? And then well, it's not. I mean, in fact, very little of it in a lot of cases are Microsoft's a lot of open source stuff. I mentioned earlier the 2-click install of WordPress, which is super easy. I mean, if you've ever done a manual install of WordPress yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it's not totally difficult. It's kind of horrible. And they have really slimmed that down. Like I said, in about 30 seconds, you've got WordPress up and running. But they've got some Drupal, there's some Bakery, there's some boilerplate stuff that's out there for you. There's Cake PHP if you want to install that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me roll through
There's
these here.
Orchard.
Flask, Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see what else would be MonoX. You talked about the Node.js. You can just create a Node.js empty site if you want.
Actually, you're looking at creating websites. Go under the create and go to where it says create a virtual machine.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then go in the gallery there.
Yeah. Let me back
what you'll
up
find
here.
is that you've got, you can create an Oracle machine, you can create SUSE, you can create CentOS, you can create Ubuntu, you've got Visual Studio, Dynamics. You can create your own and save them, and then build new machines off of those.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of Microsoft products out there as well, which, by the way, licensing-wise, it's all paid for, right? At this point, you're paying for that in part of your service. So, Windows Server 2012, we talked about that. You can get the data center edition of that. You can go back to a 28 server. You can do SharePoint. There's a SharePoint trial server out there if you want to try that out. To run SQL Server is available for you.
You want to try Visual Studio for an hour?
Yeah.
Spin up a machine. It's got everything installed. Run it for 3 or 4 hours and shut it off. And you pay for the 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it costs you 25 cents.
Exactly. Yeah. Oracle WebLogic is out there. You can get an Oracle WebLogic server, which it's just crazy to think about. Here we are in a Microsoft site, and you could Dynamics if you're in Microsoft in that Dynamics space. Those are available out there. Ubuntu servers are available. In fact, I think I spun up. Did I spend it? Is the desktop stuff? Maybe I didn't do that here. They are. It's a lot of server stuff. Have you heard anything on the desktop virtualization? It's not available.
I don't think that it's really licensed to go that way. So I don't know what their plans are. But the fact that the new CEO Satya Nadella came from the Azure team, Azure group, in tools and everything else, and is now I believe there's going to be a commitment to seeing what they can do and continuing the path that they've been going down with the Azure stuff. I mean, it's just it's brilliant how far it's come in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think in my 2012 instance, I spun up inside of it a VM of Windows 8. So you can, right, because you can run virtualization services in there and virtualize on a virtualized server, which was pretty cool. And I did it just to see if I could do it. I'm not sure I had enough cores allotted. And that's the other cool thing, right? You can, if you need horsepower, you can jack those things up. They'll spin up in real time. Use them. Crank them back down.
What? I just thought of something. So last night I was doing a talk on the mobile services, and there's some spots where my emulator wasn't quite working right because the way the network was just messing with the IP addresses. So the couple demos just didn't work, and it's like I disconnected from their network and everything worked fine. But okay, you're standing in front of the audience. I should have done it in a virtual machine and just run it all off the cloud, just had it all built and just spin it up. Here's this presentation and save it.
Yeah, and you can just, when you're done, shut it down, and you're not paying for it. And it's
all the code snippets are there, all the samples, all the emulators, everything.
Yeah, that's pretty freaking handy. Well, some pretty cool stuff with Azure. I appreciate the conversation. This has been the first time I've really sat down on the podcast and talked about it at length. But it is, again, we try to keep it to this show kind of bent towards the average tech guy, so to speak. Although we have a lot of above average guys that hang out with us here.
Right.
But I think I think Azure's, if you haven't taken a look at it, there's some good ways to do it and not be afraid of it, because there's some options that are out there that you can do for free. Hey, I want to ask you about your opinion of Windows 8.1 out there. You're doing a lot of development with that. it's kind of run itself up on the rocks for some people. Some people love it, some people hate it. You're developing for it.
Hmm.
Your thoughts on Windows 8.1, just as maybe as a developer and then as a consumer?
Well, so I'll preface my comments with my bias that I absolutely love it. I think it's the greatest thing since, well, not since sliced bread. I like bread, good bread, good rustic loaf, you know,
Sure, sure.
like. But the as far as it is an environment, it does some nice things with finally couple of shortfalls of the Windows 8 and the start menu and being able to run one, Metro app, or at most two, which was one was pinned and the other was in a certain size. 8.1 removed that limitation, allows me to run as many Metro style apps in whichever spot I want. It sounds like it's going to get even better in the next release. It has access to everything on the desktop. The fact that I can run it on a tablet and have a full Windows machine, but also switch over to the nice touch-oriented environment for things, it just makes a lot of sense. And as a early adopter of tablet and pen-based computers, my first pen computer was in '93. I bought a compact Concerto, 33 megahertz, and it had the pen. It was black and white.
Thought those things were rocking when we bought those things.
Oh man, it was the greatest thing. You could build code, and I remember going into the CEO's office and showing off how. Just think of what we can do here. This is '94, '95, and it's like, okay.
Not even an internet to speak of at that point.
Well,
cell phones are terrible. Yeah.
It was a great step, and it was so far ahead. But it seemed like then it kind of stalled for a long time. Pen-based computers never really went anywhere, and all the way up to Windows 7, it's a second citizen to come in and say, okay, well, you can do touch in Windows 7, but it's not as intuitive as it should be. The controls are too small. Touch surfaces, you still have little icons. It's like they didn't really get it. They really did have to step back and reinvent how that touch interaction works. And by going to the Metro side and threatening to go to the Windows RT and drop the abilities to do the rest of it, I think that would be not good. But the ability to have the touch-friendly thing to be able to get into data and be able to work with it, I think is absolutely great. The deployment story, it's a little bit of a challenge to get applications and build them out and deploy them going through the store. But on the other hand, from what I've seen and what I do with my customers now, I'm seeing how they're using, where they're going from having Windows XP and now they're jumping to Windows 8.1 and having a great time with it, and the experience is there. I think I was at I run a Tech Masters Club in Minneapolis, or I started one back.
It's a lot like Toastmasters. You talked about that last time we chatted, right? It's a Toastmasters for tech guys.
Toastmasters for geeks is what we call it. Techmasters Twin Cities. Go to techmasters-tc.com. You'll find our responsively designed website that was just put up this week. It's a pretty cool site. But I was sitting in a meeting and I was like, I had my tablet and I had my pen. I've got a Lenovo. This is the tablet 2. Nice thing about this is it comes with a pen, and so I can write on this and take my notes with a active stylus that actually responds to my pen. It's got an eraser on it, so I can flip it over and I can erase what I'm doing. So I'm in the meeting and I'm like, okay, well, how many people have an iPad? And about half the room hands went up. Oh yeah, this is a great thing. How many people that have iPads, keep your hands up, also have a pad of paper you're taking notes on? All their hands stayed up. Yeah. Because being able to capture and doing finger painting is one thing, but being able to, and I've been a huge advocate of pen-based computers. I like the stylus. The Windows Phone is frustrating to me because I can't use a stylus on it. There's a lot of things it does well, but there's things like for doing notes and being able to drive and go with it. It's like, okay.
What was the model? What was the model on that?
This is the Lenovo Tablet 2. Okay. It came out about a year ago, and it's got a really nice camera on it. it's like a large format camera where you kind of walk around and you take a picture, and it's got 4 cores focusing that 8 megapixel camera down, so you get super crisp pictures on it. A lot better than what my phone can do. In fact, I was walking around Germany and I was taking pictures with it. I was going snap, and those are the best pictures I got.
Where in Germany were you?
I was in Berlin.
Oh, nice.
I went over there to talk about mobile services last year. So I had a couple of conferences that were fun. Kind of got out of Minnesota and even out of the Midwest, and I went to Berlin for the Code Mash, and it went so well they invited me to come back again in the fall in Madrid. So I spent a week in Madrid.
That's when you know when you're doing a good job is when they invite you back.
Yeah. Oh, it was really a neat thing because I've been all over the U.S. and I've been an evangelist for Microsoft, and in the MSDN role, I used to cover West Coast. I used to cover Texas. I used to cover a lot of different areas, and you just get to talk to people and see what's going on, and you kind of see how people are the same. And this whole European thing is just such a big question. What is it? What's it like? And so I had the opportunity to get over there twice this last year, and it was really nice. I got a chance to see. Berlin's an interesting city because there's so much going on. As far as the tech scene, there's just a ton of energy. It's almost like Silicon Valley in the number of startups, the number of people that are doing things.
Yeah, it really is the hub of Germany again. With all that's going on there, Berlin has really become the hub of what's going on. You were mentioning writing, and I still, I have totally converted over to a OneNote user, and I type all my notes. In fact, I don't ever want to write again. I'm like writing. Anytime I have to write a note, I think, God, could I just print this thing out? I just love to sit down and just type. But that's just my preference. I think the good news, though, Mike, is that you can do it whatever way is most productive for you, right? I mean, in that case.
So my notes from, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, the camera. You have to tilt it a little bit for us, and then let me focus the camera on you here real quick. Okay, there we go. We can see it now.
So this is my OneNote for, from Toastmasters. It's like, all my notes are now handwritten. Typing. I'm not as fast of a typer as I can doodle. And you need to get a pen-based computer that's got the active stylus.
Yeah.
This device is like $450 now on Amazon.
Right.
It's super cheap,
yeah.
And it's so cheap. I got my dad one, and moved him from his Mac into using that as his main device.
Yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing. Yeah. I think for some people, writing is the way to go. I can type super fast, and I love a good keyboard. In fact, when I spend money on the keyboard because that's the important part to me. And and I just everything I do is type, tab. And the beauty of OneNote, right, is it supports both writing and typing and audio and clips, and I mean.
It does so many different things.
It really does. It's a great organizer, and I'm only scratching the surface on the productivity of it. I just can't say enough good stuff about. I've been in meetings where I've just turned on the recorder, and it records it right into the note.
Did you know that it doesn't just save the recording, but it transcribes it, and then you can search the audio?
I didn't know that. That's
a desktop
awesome.
Version. Yeah. That's been there since 2007 or earlier. The first versions of OneNote.
Transcription is still not very good. Like even when you try and get it in Bing or when you try and get, especially like Link. We use Microsoft Link, and the transcription is horrible.
Well, it's what you get, but it's pretty good. Yeah. One of the guys that was on the Microsoft Voice from R&D back in around 2008, 2009, Mithun Dar came onto the MSDN evangelist team, and so he was showing us all this stuff that it's like Microsoft spends a lot of money on research, $8-9 billion a year. That goes somewhere. I mean, that's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, MSR is doing amazing things.
Yeah, I wish more of it. I wish they would be better about advertising the really good stuff and not,
it makes it in the product, but they bury it.
I know. It's like Azure, like Home Server.
Visual Studio.
Like,
It's
they
all the
don't.
stuff.
Yeah, a lot of those things. So Drashna was asking, what doesn't OneNote do? Does a lot
Yeah.
of stuff, and you can get all that free
Hmm. Hmm.
through the Office apps too. You get a
Yeah.
version of, and it all syncs. I'm at work and I access OneNote and it syncs.
Hmm.
I've put in my Microsoft ID and it syncs to the cloud, and I come home and they're all there. And now it doesn't. One of the things I still don't like about the Microsoft apps is they don't update in real time. And one of the things
Well.
that we do in,
Hmm.
I know they're getting better about that, but it's
Yeah.
still not as good as the Google Plus stuff.
So this is I was using this for a customer, and I've got my handwritten notes going into OneNote, which is fun. But the thing that I had was I had OneNote open on my desktop computer, and I had the screen up, and so as I'm writing on my tablet, it's syncing, and the handwritten notes are showing up on the screen.
Yeah.
And it's like you circle something, and it gets circled up on the screen, and you're doing this live time. And then you take a picture of the whiteboard, and then you keep going on the whiteboard on the computer. And it's just the way that
Yeah.
it brings so many different things.
Sync services have gotten a lot better for sure.
And then the handwriting recognition too. So when I search for a word like north, it'll look at my handwriting and recognize all the times I've written the word north.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Evernote doesn't do that.
Yeah, Evernote's good.
Just saying.
Yeah. Evernote's good. I think
Yeah, it
if
is.
you haven't tried OneNote or haven't come to OneNote recently and used it,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth a second look. It's a pretty powerful application. Okay, let's transition into Home
Yeah.
Server, because
All right.
now I promised Dave McCabe, he's my partner at the Home Server
Yep.
Show, and he listens to this show, and I
Mm-hmm.
promised him that I would really try and stay away from Home Server topics, but you wanted to ask this on the show, and I don't have you on all the time. So
Right.
you had a Home Server problem, and we're going to kind of throw this out to the community a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. And so I'm going to help you out a little bit, but we're really looking for some feedback from you. So guys in chat, we want you to kind of chime in with some things. We're going to help Mike with his Home Server. That's originally when we started interviewing each other. I told him, hey, I'm an MVP on the Home Server team. He's like, Home Server, I've got a
Cool.
problem.
I got an issue, and I haven't solved it yet.
So tell us
And
your
it
issue.
was from August. So I've got a home server. I've got one of the original Windows home server. That's the old what is it, Server 2003 with all this stuff
It's
on
an
it.
HP MediaSmart, right? Do you know the model number?
It's a Lenovo. It's a Lenovo Idea
Oh,
Center.
so did you build it yourself?
No, I bought it from. I went out to CDW or the Computer Warehouse.
Okay.
I bought the Lenovo version of their Media Center, the one they had listed.
Okay.
So I think it's called Idea Center.
All right.
And it comes
has
with
Home Server. It has Home Server installed on it.
It is. It's
Okay.
just a home server. It doesn't have a video out. Doesn't have anything else. It's just a box you plug in. It's got 4 bays for hard drives. You plug them in, turn it on. The network recognizes home server, and everything's good.
Okay.
Except that the last 6 months, the networking on it, it'll come up, and when I boot it, it'll be on the network. But then after about, I don't know, an hour or so, it drops from the network, and I can't get it back without powering it off and bringing it back on. So I've copied the things that I need off of it into other spots like the cloud. So I'm using cloud storage for a lot of things, but I'd love to have my server come back to life. Do I I don't know if it's a network card. I tried plugging in like a wireless dongle and using the wireless network on it, then remoting in and configuring that. Got it on the network and I was able to see it, but then that dropped too. So something's odd.
And so you can remote into it, right? You are able to get remote desktop access to it.
When I first boot it, yep.
Okay, and you get it for about an hour or so,
Mm-hmm.
and then the network connection drops. Will, the chat room is about 30 seconds behind, so while we got some pretty good guys out there milling that over. I would think if you've had it that long, and you can install, Drashna says install 2011 and go to DrivePool. If you've had it that long, and you haven't reinstalled Windows,
Nope.
The home server back on it, that may just be the easiest, best first option, right?
Is to just get a different one
and well, did
over.
it come with? It came pre-installed, but do you still have the
Mhm.
original install discs for it?
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. So I would drop that in, and I think there are some instructions of what you need to do. It's not.
BIOS?
Say it again.
A BIOS came across there.
Yeah. Can you? Well, but it all of a sudden just started happening, right? It wasn't like you changed anything, any updates to anything, any.
Not that, no, I mean, it was just being used. It was doing the backup for all the media centers, so all the video and TV recordings and stuff like
Oh, I
that.
see
And
why. So the guy says it's going to sleep. Maybe it's a BIOS setting. In other words, after an hour of non-use, or it's seeing it as non-use, it's shutting off the network card. It's putting the whole thing to sleep.
the lights are still on in the front, though.
Okay. Well, okay.
So, I mean, it's not the lights going dark.
Tony says he's got his 2011 box has a similar problem.
Mm-hmm.
It says other gyms
Power
says
setting?
did power yeah
Mm-hmm. I don't
power
think so.
settings Wake on LAN. Did you install any plugins like a Wake on LAN plugin that might be messing with that network card?
I have tried swapping out the network cable, and I have plugged in different. I added the wireless network adapter as a USB drive on the back.
Yeah, you tried a whole
And that didn't.
separate wireless card, right? That was
Yep.
totally different,
Out
USB
of band
driven.
switch. Yep.
Yeah, and it's still about an hour. It's still cut off on you, huh?
Mm-hmm. So if I did want to upgrade to the 2011 Windows Home Server, what am I going to? I mean, I need to reload all of my media and content and stuff like that.
You would make sure everything's backed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get it somewhere else, and then yeah, you would reinstall. Is that a 64? Is that a 32-bit box or a 64-bit box?
I think it's 32-bit. I'm guessing because it's the age of it, that it was before 64-bit was all the rage.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you're going to go to 2011, the reason we like 2011 now, one, it's super cheap, right? It's well, you have an MSDN subscription, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're all cheap. From if you're going to run it that way.
Is 2011 the latest, or is there been anything since then?
So 2012 Essentials has had two versions. So there's 2012 Essentials, 2012 R2 Essentials.
Okay.
And basically the R2 gets you virtualization on the 2012 box.
Okay.
So 2011 stripped down. You get it's the last version of the traditional home server is what that is. So the dashboard, that's all you get. They limit a whole bunch of things. You got to hack into it if you want to get any of the other services running. But it does. It's just that. I mean, it's so the HP Media or the HP microserver that's sitting right behind me. That's running Windows Server 2011 right now. I don't ever mess with it. I mean, it just works, right? Those licenses are $40 or $50 right now. You can run it on a pretty. We're all in our community. We're all hooked on these new HP microservers. In fact, if you go to homeservershow.com and join those forums, which you should. You'd be great at contributing to this, by the way.
Oh yeah.
There's all kinds of. There's all kinds of Gen 8. That's the latest HP box. To come out, but Gen 7 boxes right now, or the N54Ls, couple $100 for the box, and you get 4 drive bays, and we have all kinds of different ways to hack those, hack the boxes now to add more drives to them if you want, more storage, more. And the Gen 8 boxes are nice. I mean, we even had one of our guys, Kevin Schoonover, actually designed and fabricated a hard drive enclosure or hard drive bracket, so you could add 2 more drives to this box, right? It's one of the, you mount it and then you can bolt the drives in there. So lots of information over at homeservershow.com if you want to get up to speed on that. But if you're, with a box that old, honestly, and if it's 32-bit, it's not worth. It's kind of
It's old technology is the thing, and we're almost to the point where it's almost compelling enough to just say, for the 10 hours I'm going to spend doing that, I could go out and be billable or something.
On, because you're going to reinstall it, and you don't know that hardware. You don't know how much longer that hardware is going to last, and some of those kinds of things. It'd make a great media. It'd probably make a pretty good. Do you know what processor is in there?
Not offhand. It's been basically a paperweight for going dark for a long time, so it's been a while since I've been on. I did try. There's a lot of comments in there about turning off drive extender and some of the other things. Looking at the system on the event viewer, looking for something that says why is it dying. I've been through a lot of that, and I'm sort of a power user, I think. More so than some.
No, I would, after talking to you tonight, I would say you're probably a power user.
I asked the guys from the TechNet team, okay, so when I get to things I don't understand, then it's like, I'll go to Keith Combs or to
Yeah.
Matt Hester or Kevin Remedy or those guys and say, okay, come on, help me out here. But
No luck
I don't
from
know.
them, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's Drashna thinks it's an Atom 230.
probably.
Yeah, so I think you're probably better off making sure your data's backed up and then thinking about the next generation. And like I said, we all like the Gen 7, Gen 8 HP microservers. Now,
Yep.
there's one caveat to that. HP just changed their upgrade policy, and I haven't really followed it as much as I can, but they're charging for server upgrades now.
Ooh.
So yeah, so for all of us who are in on this, it wasn't a pleasant day when they announced that. We're like, what, are you freaking kidding me? You're going to charge for, for server updates? And I haven't done all the digging in on that to
Mm.
find out what that really means. I don't. Well, yeah. And so, do you do bare metal backup? Do you back up the PCs in the house, or is that a desire? Is to back up the PCs in the house as well?
Most of the PC data files and stuff like that, I'm using the cloud for.
Yeah.
So just using the OneDrive, SkyDrive for a lot of that. And then I've got just disk copies of things.
So what, like today, right? When you think
Mhm.
about a home server and what it was doing for you,
Mhm.
what kind of things do you still want it to do for you today? What would you really like a home server for?
It'd be nice to have a place that's going to archive all the photos and all of the videos, the home videos. TV, I'm not so worried about, but it's nice having 4 terabytes of disks for you know 200 hours of TV.
Yeah, and you've got a
You can
lot of
watch
that.
anytime.
You have a
DVR.
lot of
Yeah.
that kind of data.
So I'm using the media center, and that's another question. Where is media center going? And
Oh,
you
you
know,
opened a can of worms, my friend.
I know maybe that'll be our next show, right?
Oh, well, you'll get, in this group that's here today, I look at Tim and I look at
Hmm.
Drashna and some of those guys, even John Zadler.
Hmm.
These guys are pretty bitter that Microsoft has kind of killed for the most part, right? Media Center's gone.
Hmm.
You have to, well, it's not being, and you got to hack it onto Windows 8 for the most part.
Hmm.
I mean, you can do
Yep.
it, but and so most of the media centers that we run here in the community are all still Windows 7 based,
Yep.
right? Everybody's kind of
Yep.
hanging on to Windows 7 at this point until something better comes along. And
Right.
so I
I'm
mean,
one of them.
yeah, me too.
Hmm.
Me too. We have a
Yeah.
media center out front in the living room. I have a media center here on the studio PC. That's
Yep.
how I watch TV from the office.
Yep.
In fact, I don't, the studio PC, which doubles as, when I'm watching TV back here, this is what I
Hmm.
watch. I've thought of upgrading it to Windows 8 a couple times, and I'm like, no,
Mm,
maybe not. It's
yeah.
working great right now. I used to be a guy that used to update everything.
Yeah.
The only thing I've upgraded to Windows 8 are the laptops that have touch, and everything
Hmm.
else has stayed Windows 7 at this point.
You
Uh,
know, One of the things I do with and this might be useful to the people on here, is boot from VHD. So my wife's machine, or the family machine, is a Windows 7 machine that runs the media center, does all of our recordings, got everything on there. What's nice about doing boot from VHD is that I can copy that VHD back on there, and I'm back in business if there's any issues or problems. So I keep a copy of her PC on my hard drive just in case. And every once in a while, the kids will click on something will get installed, and all of a sudden you have something showing up saying you got malware, and it's reformatting the registry. And it's like, oh man, shut it off, copy the VHD back on, they're back in business. We store none of the data files on the OS disk, and you just go to town. Now, this is something that bothers me about Windows 8 and 8.1, or actually Windows 8.1, is that if you go into the Explorer on Windows 8.1 and you're looking at the files, all of a sudden my pictures, videos, music, documents that are user folders are listed under this PC, which just clutters it up because I'm not using those folders. I will never use those
right.
folders on the C drive. I will use the OS for the OS, and I'll put all of my personal data files someplace that I can recover when I bring back my PC on some other machine. So if anyone wants to provide some feedback to Microsoft, go out and just say, hey, let's clean up the folders there. I don't know, have you looked at that?
No, I haven't personally. No.
Quirky things.
Yeah.
It's little things that just annoy
Well,
people.
in my Windows 8 usage, over the last year or so, I've gone from kind of a super user to just a power user, so to speak. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I use a lot. for me, it just needs to work right now. I'm so busy doing productivity stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to dink around like I used to, where I'd be, oh, let's tweak this and let's, tweak that. And now I just want the thing to work. And so what's really weird is my usage patterns or my discovery patterns have changed. I no longer am, I used to reload Windows once a year. All the
Mm-hmm.
PCs got a new copy of Windows. Well, this
Mm-hmm.
PC I'm on now, it's almost 2.5 years now that and it works great. I mean, I don't have any problems with it,
Yeah.
but I'm not messing with it. I don't spend the time doing the research that I used to do. I don't read all the tech news that I used to. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so for me, the life has gone in the direction I've gotten so busy using the technology, and I used to really get mad at people that did this. I'm like, you should pay attention. Well, I'm so busy doing productivity stuff
Yeah.
that I haven't been able to dig in and get some things figured out. Part of the reason I podcast, to be honest with you, is
Mm-hmm.
to have conversations like it
Yeah.
slows me down
Right.
enough to be able to have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation like this that helps me. And I love the tech. I just haven't had as much time to dig. It's like this is so weird for me. Like now I don't want devices anymore. I'm like, if somebody gave me an iPad or a Galaxy Tab Note 10.2 or whatever they call that thing now,
Yeah.
I'd be like, why don't you just keep it? Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't have time to it's just the place I'm at. I do like I have an Android
Yeah.
phone and a Windows phone
Mm-hmm.
as well, and I use both,
Mm-hmm.
in the ecosystem, but I
Mm-hmm.
use them,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
I
Well,
just yeah.
it is. It's hard to, and that's where technology needs to go to, is where you actually forget the technology and it works the way that you expect it would in the first place.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. It doesn't hurt, but it's not required.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I keep thinking, I hope this doesn't go on too long because I really do miss my tech days when I used to dig in and
Mm-hmm.
know what was going on and know what's going on in the news and those kinds of things. And I just keep hoping. Well, maybe someday that part will come back, and I'll
Oh yeah.
get. For now, I'm going to interview smart guys like you and let you do all the dirty work for me. So. Hey, one last thing. Oh, well,
Sure.
we didn't really solve your problem, but we'll
Mm-hmm.
throw that out there. If you have some comments for
Mm-hmm.
Mike on that, you can drop them in the comment section at theaverageguy.tv. So head out to the post. It'll be theaverageguy.tv/HT158 by the time I post this, and
Yep.
you can leave a comment there. And if they show up, I'll let Mike know. Mike, really, I
Yeah.
just encourage you at this point. I think I told you this back in the day. Join us over at thehomeservershow.com/forums and post in there both your problem and then read on some of the things some of the guys are
Mm-hmm.
doing now with some of the new generation of home servers.
I'll
And
do that. I'll
I
do
think
that.
there's so much good information out there around the
Mm-hmm.
home server concept. These guys they're hitting it out of the park. It's the best right now. It's really weird because we thought the home server, when Microsoft killed the home server concept a year or two ago,
Mm-hmm.
we thought it's dead. It has never been more alive
Oh
than it
yeah.
is right now.
Well, pretty soon it's gonna be as alive as XP.
The home server will. But what's surprising is 2011 is really got
Yeah.
some legs, and
Yeah.
and some of the guys are making the jump to 2012 R2
Mm-hmm.
Essentials. Now it's expensive if you actually try and pay for that. It's a $500 server
License.
bill
Ugh.
just for the license. Yeah,
Yeah.
495. You can get
Yeah.
it for 399, but it's a little bit more of an investment. You're
Right.
dropping, but
But
it's super powerful software.
that's cool stuff.
Or you can do it on Azure for $13 a month.
I like the pay as you go, and I like paying little.
Yeah, especially if you're not doing bare metal backup. If
Mm-hmm.
if you're just keeping files out there and you want to keep them in your own
Mm-hmm.
private cloud,
Mm-hmm.
man, that's not a bad way to look at Azure
Mm-hmm.
and setting up that instance in the
Mm-hmm.
cloud. So some good stuff.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you a question not related to Microsoft, but
Yeah.
this week Christopher Bridge, one of the guys in our Facebook group. So if you go to
Mm-hmm.
facebook.com/group/ the average guy, or just go to theaverageguy.tv/Facebook. That's the easiest way to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
He asked, or didn't ask a question, but he posted that Google has severely dropped the price on their online storage now, and where 1 terabyte of backup or storage is available for $10 a month, which is it's pretty good pricing. Hey, can we hook Azure to Google? Is there a connector that I can buy the Google storage but have the server on Azure?
Yes.
Oh,
There's
really?
nothing to stop you. But the trouble is that all of the data going in and out of the data centers, you're going to pay for the for that
Oh,
going back
true,
and forth.
true.
So, I mean, it's the code far model, and you want the code near. You want the compute to be close to the storage. I mean, it's just efficiency, latency, and everything else. But, if you're doing something like, yeah, I mean, all the services are great, and you can use the best of breed and make it all work. But,
Well, and wouldn't this be good cold storage? I mean, a whole terabyte for
mhm.
$10 a month. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if you just set it and forget it, so to speak,
Hmm.
and I mean that's pretty. It's to the point. I only have about 300 or 400 gig of data anyway in my house. I mean, I have all this home server
Well,
stuff, but
what about your home videos?
no, we don't. I don't. We don't shoot any home videos for the most part. We're
Okay,
not.
there you
We're not
go.
a family that did that.
Right.
Um, I back up my, or not back. Well, yeah, I do. I back up my home movies,
Hmm.
right? I rip those, but I put them on
The
the
home movie.
Drobo, and if I lost them, it wouldn't. I still got all the hard copies, and
Right,
I
right.
don't
But I
need
mean,
those
but I
back.
mean, that's where it's video that eats up a lot of space. It's going to be, the pictures. People are you're getting these 41 megapixel cameras now. Where do those 41 megapixel pictures
True,
get put?
true, true.
All of a sudden, instead of being, a couple hundred K for a picture, it's now, 8 or 10 meg. And
Yeah,
once you multiply that out, and that's where it's like storage got cheap, but they found ways to use it. So
yeah.
yeah, it'll be
Well,
interesting to see.
even on OneDrive, right?
Hmm.
Microsoft's new OneDrive. I think over time I've collected through various promotions and
Hmm.
MVP conference and stuff. I think I got almost 300, 286 gig
Yeah.
worth of
Yeah.
storage on a OneDrive. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
That's a ton of storage, and it's like I'm using 12 gig of it, and I'm
I
like,
know. I feel
okay,
bad.
well, I'm not putting all my pictures up there because yeah, I'd have to. One of the things they could do a better job of with OneDrive is having family. So like all
Oh
of my
yeah.
family pictures being in one place. That's where Media Center and Home Server sort of, were supposed to be the
Right.
thing.
Right.
And I want to be able to turn on my Xbox and play all of my pictures from everyone's cameras in one spot.
Yes.
And be able to, okay, it's associated. So, yeah, your kids were on VHS-C.
Well, I guess you could though, because this is a huge problem,
Yeah.
right? What if all my camera? What if so I have my OneDrive account and my camera's uploading there, and then something happens to me, right? All those
Hmm.
photos are locked up inside of my account, and unless
Hmm.
my significant other has my username and
Hmm.
password, he's never going to get access to it from that
Hmm.
standpoint. And so we do need this, and I think I could create that family folder, and then I could share that with everybody,
Hmm.
and you would have access to it and give them download rights. So I could do that. I could do it that way
Right.
if I wanted.
Right. Well, I sync my SkyDrive folders and I keep a local copy of the pictures just because I want to be able to have it at least on one machine. But if that machine gets run over by a truck, I just point it to another machine and turn on
Yeah.
the folder duplication, and now I've got a local copy. So the cloud goes away. I've got it on this machine, and then I share that through the network for the to every other PC, and they just get their photos in their photo library. And the libraries is a good idea, but to be able to pull it back in, so you can get to pictures that way. But one of the things that the Windows could do a better job of is adding to libraries network locations that are not indexed, because I go out to add into my pictures library, for instance, all the pictures from the home server or whatever. It says it's a non-indexed location, you can't add it. So you end up having to create a reference to it and then fake the system into like letting you do this. And it's like, come on, guys, Windows boys, come on, let's get this thing figured out. Come on, gals.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and don't you think? I mean, when we think about pictures, also shared pictures. Right now, I use Facebook as a picture repository
It
in a lot
is.
of ways, right? And we're posting them there,
Mm-hmm.
and then if I need to pull them down, if they're family photos, well, my family hasn't disowned me yet, so I can still, I
Mm-hmm.
still have access to them through there. So that's
Mm-hmm.
another place they sit and reside.
And then
Um,
you've got Flickr, and you've got all these
right,
different places that they could be sitting.
right,
So it's
right.
like, but my daughters are at an age where they've got Windows phones, and they have a SkyDrive account, and they're uploading their pictures to their SkyDrive, and my pictures are going to my SkyDrive, trying to pull them together.
Right. Well, and that's the hard part right now. I had the first time in a long time happen to me just today with pictures.
Hmm.
I was what was I doing? I was doing a Google search for something of mine, and I thought, well, I'll just type my name in to find the picture, right? That's an easy way to find your picture sometime. And I saw a picture of me I'd never seen before, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, this is weird. So I click on it and I go, and it was well, I was in Germany a year ago and
Mm-hmm.
saw some friends, and they took a picture and uploaded it to a blog post they had made and
Mm-hmm.
never shared it with me. I had no idea it was out there.
Yep.
I just came across it, right? And I just found it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so all that stuff is out there, and Facebook does a nice job of tying that all together. Where if they tag you on it,
Right.
that works well. But yeah, stuff is everywhere.
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting, this whole social media, the way that Facebook is tying things together. Uh, I mean, we talked about this before the show started. What social media is, what's it doing, and where's it going to be in 5 years from now? Is
Right.
Facebook, usage or is it still the thing that the young people are going to?
Still number
That's
one
old
for
business,
today. Still number one. But
right?
will it be? Yeah, like
But
you
is
said, will it be
Snapchat the
for
next, Facebook? And if you look at that, it's like, okay, well, it's a completely different model. It's a
yeah.
different thing going on. It's like, okay, so.
Yeah. Well, I used to think Facebook would fade. The reason I don't think it will as much is because our demographic is on it, and we don't change very
Oh,
fast.
oh, my parents' demographic is on it, and they've got nothing else to do.
I know, isn't it funny? Have you seen that commercial where the old lady is like, "Well, this is my offline Facebook," and she has the pictures taped on the wall, physically on her wall,
Right.
and when she takes the picture off and hands it to you, she said, "I'm going to unfriend you," and the other gal is like, "It doesn't work that way." It is a hilarious commercial, but you're right. Well,
Oh, I love that.
hey, Mike, we have for the recorded part of the show, we've
Mhm.
extended our time. I want to
Yep.
thank you for coming out. Stay around. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
We got a little
Hey,
bit.
if anyone wants to get a hold of me, just my Twitter handle's mbenko, and I'd love to have 1,000 followers. I'm not quite
Oh,
as where you are.
nice.
You know,
Nice.
I'm trying.
Well,
Benko, and it's benkotips.com. There's a link there. You can send me an email, mike@benko.com. So, and I
yeah,
am a consultant. I'm looking for work. So,
sure. Very good. And I'll include all those
mhm.
links in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
So folks want to go out to theaverageguy.tv/HT158. That is this show, and that will get it done. I do have a couple announcements, so hang tight, Mike, for 1 second, and we'll
Mhm.
roll through those. Of course, our Amazon affiliate link continues to do very well. You guys have been very generous over every month. It's crazy what we're doing. And so if you head out to theaverageguy.tv/Amazon, that's the way to support the podcast. And, we turn those dollars around into uh, really reviews. And I have not had anybody, you guys must be as busy as I am. I have not had anybody request a review from me in a while. And so we got a little bit of money in the bank. If you are interested in reviewing a product, we try to keep it around $100. Something you're interested in, let me know. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. Just put review item in the subject line, and you and I will chat about it. I'll send it out to you. You get to review it, drop a post on. If you want to come on the show, you can do that, and then you get to keep it. It's a pretty good deal, and it's all done because of the generosity of you guys through our Amazon link. So theaverageguy.tv/Amazon. Just a reminder, I'm now on Saturday mornings, 9:30 p.m. No, I'm sorry, 9:30 a.m. Central here, 10:30 Eastern at the Ask the Podcast Coach. So Dave Jackson and I are getting together on Saturday mornings. And if you're an aspiring podcaster or you want to just listen podcasting, it won't be for all of you. In fact, very few of you, but some folks like to know what I'm doing. So Saturday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Central. Ask the Podcast Coach. It's out at schoolofpodcasting.com, and Dave Jackson's a good guy. We talk all about tech around podcasting. I've done a few of them, so I've got maybe just a few things to say about podcasting. Started a brand new podcast today called Theme Thursday for what I do at Gallup, and so we now have a weekly podcast in place. Although it's two podcasts, they go every other week, and so we do Called to Coach, which is for our strengths coaches and those that have businesses around strengths coaching. It's like life coaching. But now we have Theme Thursday, so we dig into the individual, in the Strengths Finder, there's 34 themes, and everybody has those in some order, and we rank them for you. And if you want to know more about those themes, and if you want to see the podcast that I'm doing out there, Theme Thursday out at coaching.gallup.com. Again, that link will be in the show notes if you want to head out there. We had a really good first show, so a couple hundred live and 100 or so in chat, maybe something like that. And so it's kind of fun for me to do those kinds of things, not only the podcasting here, but the podcasting I get to do at work. And then, like I said in the beginning of the show, 7 more followers. 7. That's all I need, 7 more. So if you haven't followed me on Twitter yet, head out to twitter.com/Jay Collison is what we'll get you. I had to think about that for a second. We'll get you out there. And follow Mike while you're at it too. I'm sure. Mike, do you post much on Twitter?
Not as much as I did when I was at Microsoft. That's kind of go a little bit darker, but then I have more fun with it.
Okay. Well, so if you want somebody who's not posting silly stuff all the time, but you want to ask him questions, I mean, obviously he knows a few things. So if you follow him on Twitter, I'm sure you could send him a tweet and he'll answer that for you. You do that kind of stuff?
Oh, sure.
All right. Very cool. See, there you go. So let's pick up a few
email
followers.
too. It's really weird.
That email?
Yeah.
What's
I know, it's the old tech.
Is that where people type things and then hit send? Is that how that works? That's the old way. Benko, Benko will get you to Mike's Twitter account. We do this every Thursday night, just about every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at theaverageguy.tv/live. Over the next couple weeks, we got a couple really good. We got some more good stuff coming up for you. Let me just pull that up real quick. So I know that. Let's see. I gotta find the show schedule. I should have had that up a little bit earlier, but here it is. So coming up after this awesome one, come on Google, there we go.
You have some interesting people coming in?
We do. So we got Daniel Daniel Vokey from On Air Player. So if you haven't checked that out, just Google On Air Player. Kind of an interesting alternative to iTunes and Xbox Music and some of it's your music streamed live. So check that out. He'll be on to talk about it. And then on the 27th, we've got Eric Warnke from Mover.io. Mike, have you heard of Mover.io?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so they're a cloud storage moving. They move files without it ever coming to your, so if you have bandwidth caps and you need to move files between like copy.com and Dropbox, they can orchestrate that and it never hits your bandwidth. The cool thing about that is they got this partnership with copy.com, and Copy for a while was giving away storage like there was no tomorrow. So I think I have 200 or 300 or 400 gig worth of storage out there too. If you move it onto copy.com, they give you a 10 gig limit for free. Then you pay for that. You pay for some of that bandwidth after that. But if you're moving it onto copy.com, the whole transaction's free. Cool. So it might be worth looking if you're moving data around. Like today, I back up my WordPress site, and then I move that file from my via FTP from my WordPress server over to copy.com as a backup. I don't pay anything to do that, and it does it automatically. So never comes through, never touches my local network, and a great way to. So Mover.io, and then we actually have a financial tech one coming up. We're going to do it on home tech, but we're going to talk about finances and tech, which will be kind of cool. And then I got a fitness tech one. And then on the 17th of April, Mike Howard and his gang from JPEG to RAW, everybody knows those guys here in the community, JPEG to RAW, Mike Howard, Sess White, and Tim, will be on to talk about photo technology. So we'll get some pretty cool stuff coming up as well. Consider tonight the kickoff to all kinds of really good, interesting stuff. There's been some interesting stuff.
Happiness.
So, Mike, thanks again for coming out, and we will catch everyone back here next week, next Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, at theaverageguy.tv. Good night, everybody.